Hi everybody, it's me, your host, Sucre Yaro here. Back at it again. Welcome to February. I know, for last week, I said I was maybe gonna do 2 episodes, but I forgot how months and days and weeks worked. So I really thought February was starting last week, last Saturday. Clearly it wasn't, because now it's February. So, I'm using a new recording site because of all the audio skipping. If there's audio skipping in this, then Jinxie will report it to me, probably soon. Once they listen, once this is posted. You know how podcasts work. And Jinxie was, the one that brought the audio skipping to my attention in the first place. So, we're using a new site to see if that fixes things at all. And if not, then we're gonna need to get our stuff together. So for this month, we're, in honor of Valentine's Day, we're reading The Heartbreak Messenger by Alexander Vance. As you learned last time, we read the back first. There's a bunch of, pictures of those candy hearts, the Sweethearts candy with, the little, you're cute, that stuff. But instead of, the you're cute, it's bye-bye, don't call, it's not you, hasta la vista, baby. Forget about it. Later gator. But in slang form. Text form. Oh my gosh. Quentin never asked to be the Heartbreak Messenger. It just kind of happened. And he can't let a golden opportunity pass him by. The valuable communication service he offers is simple. He delivers breakup messages. For a small fee, he will deliver that message to your soon-to-be ex. If you order the deluxe package, he'll even throw in some flowers and a box of chocolates. To soften the blow. At first, Quentin's entrepreneurial brainchild is surprisingly successful, which is great, because he suspects his mom, who works as a car mechanic, is worried about money. But as he interacts with clients, message recipients, and his best friend Abigail, it doesn't take long for him to wonder if his own heart will remain intact. Quentin discovers that the game of love and the emotions that go with it are as complicated as they come, even for an almost innocent bystander. I think I got this in 5th grade, because if you remember in school, they had those little book fairs, and there were bookmarks and a bunch of books, obviously, and all those random things, and my sister saw it at a book fair and thought it was something I'd be interested, so she got it for me. At least that's what I remember happening. I might be wrong. My memory is like hot dog water. I don't know. So, I know it's a Scholastic book, which is why I'm thinking, Scholastic Book Fair? This seems like a vivid moment in my memory. For Jessica, who said she would be the least complicated person in my life. That's the dedication. Alexander, you seem like a simp. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Oh, nar. Nar. Chapter 1. I didn't choose to be the Heartbreak Messenger. Not really. I was just trying to make a few honest bucks and help a guy out. I definitely didn't choose the name. I don't know who did. It just started floating around and eventually stuck. Me? I would have gone for something more professional and less girly. Speaking of girls, I should probably tell you something about myself right off the bat, and it's embarrassing, so you can pretty much count on it being true. I'm not exactly what you would call a ladies' man. Anyone who knows me can tell you I don't talk to girls if I can help it. I mean, besides my friend Abby and the occasional cashier at the grocery store. I'm only saying this so you'll believe me when I tell you that I didn't get involved in all this as a way to meet girls. And for the record, I don't enjoy making people cry either. Buddy, if you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to let it spiral. You could have been like, hey, I'll help you, and then that's it. You could have just stuck to that and, bam, no more. But believe it or not, there are guys out there that have even more trouble with girls than I do. The crazy part is that some of those guys have girlfriends, and that's where I come in. It all started with Rob McFarlane's older brother, who was a junior in high school. We were sitting in Rob's kitchen one afternoon eating ice cream. That was the great thing about Rob's house. Both of his parents worked, and the freezer was always stocked with ice cream. As long as the rest of the house was in one piece when they came home, his parents didn't really care if half a carton of Rocky Road was missing. Rob's brother, Marcus, came in and pulled out the mint fudge brownie. He had on his red delivery uniform, but he didn't seem to be in a hurry to get to work. He sat down and dug in with a serving spoon. Rob looked up from making patterns in his ice cream with his fork prongs. Dude, Marcus, use a bowl. Rob had been my friend since the second grade when he dared me to kiss a particular girl on the playground. I didn't have the guts, so I started a fight with him instead. If that isn't how guys become friends, I don't. Ugh. I think I've heard things about guys being friends, but, they become friends in weird ways. I'm sorry, I just heard a car screech. Oh my gosh. Stop screeching! You're hurting my ears. Oh my gosh. The cars can't hear me, but it's so annoying. Where am I? He finished it by throwing sand in my face. Sitting in the principal's office afterward, me blind and him busted, had bonded us for life in a prisoner of war kind of way. I guess you could say he was my best friend. Of two. One of two. Marcus scowled at his brother. Don't bug me. I'm thinking. First time for everything, Rob said. Marcus didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at the spotted green ice cream on his spoon. Man, you really are thinking, Rob said. I was kind of amazed, too. Marcus dropped his spoon back into the carton without taking a bite. He pushed the ice cream away. I've got problems. I licked the dripping ice cream from my spoon. What kind of problems? Rob answered for him. Girl problems. With Marcus, it's always girl problems. But I thought you already have a girlfriend, I said. Sure, man, but that's when the real problems start. Marcus looked at me with troubled eyes. Rob had already lost interest and was digging the marshmallows out of his ice cream, but I was curious. Like what? Like on Monday when I picked her up for school. I wore my cross trainers, but she made me go back home and change into my dress shoes. She said they went better with my shirt. Oh. Or Tuesday. I was gonna hang out with the guys, but she needed me to come decorate for some preschool for their fall party. She wanted me to stay for the party, too. I barely escaped. Told her I wasn't feeling well. Now I was losing interest. Or today, in English, when she saw me passing notes back and forth with Cammie Bollinger. It didn't mean anything, but Melissa spends the rest of the day giving me the silent treatment. Uh-huh. Man, I just don't feel free anymore. I can't do what I want to do. I'm trapped. I think I need to break up with her. Rob suddenly surfaced from his bowl of ice cream. Break up with Melissa? But I thought you liked her. Marcus reached across the table and swatted Rob on the side of the head. You're so dense. Haven't you been listening? I'm miserable. I want my freedom. So break up with her, I said, between spoonfuls. I'm not sure how. I've never done it before. Yeah, Rob said. Girls usually dump him. He ducked just in time to miss another swat from Marcus's hand. Why don't you just send her an email? I suggested. Or a text. Not a chance, Marcus said. Tony Xiong sent this sappy text to break up with his girl last year, and you know what happened? She forwarded it to everyone on her contact list and then posted it to her blog. You can Google Tony's name right now and his breakup text pops right to the top. Don't be a wuss, Rob said. Just talk to her. Marcus glared at him. If it's so easy, then you do it. He paused for a moment, and I saw the wheels in his head start moving again. Hey, that's it. Why don't you break up with her for me? Rob almost snorted an almond. What? You're crazy. Besides, Mom and Dad grounded my cell phone after I downloaded all those games, remember? No, I mean talk with her in person. I'm serious. Go and let her know that it just isn't working out between us, that I think we should go our separate ways. Not a chance, Rob said. That's so totally not going to happen. Please, begged Marcus. I'll give you $20 if you do it. My ears perked up. $20 just for delivering a message? Rob shook his head. Not gonna happen. I cleared my throat. I'll do it. I was kind of surprised to hear myself say that. This was probably a family thing, and I shouldn't have butted in. But I'm not one to turn down easy money. Like one year in elementary school, we had a fundraiser where we had to get people to buy things from a Christmas catalog. Picture frames and little angel statues and smelly decorations. The kid that sold the most would win $50. Most of the kids went door to door, hitting up the parents of the other kids that were selling. I figured out a better strategy. My mom knew a lady in charge of an old folks' home that let me bring my catalog there. Yeah. In one afternoon, I easily claimed that $50 and made a whole building full of grandmas happy at the same time. Marcus looked at me with a hopeful half-smile. You serious? Sure, if you want me to, I shrugged. For the 20, of course, in advance. Marcus grabbed the ice cream carton and dug in. Quentin, you're a lifesaver. Chapter 2. Seriously, Quentin, when do you know about breaking up with high school girls? Rob asked me later that afternoon as we walked down to Mix. You're in 7th grade. Age matters not, I said in my best Yoda voice. No. Yoda didn't say that. He said size matters not. No way. It was when he was talking about being 900 years old or something. Size matters not. It was when Luke was trying to carry Yoda on his shoulders. Rob and I passed the glass doors that opened into the front of Mickelson's Quality Service garage. I just said garage, like a Scotsman. Oh my god. It's the only auto garage in the county that's open until midnight. Plus, they give you a complimentary pine-scented air freshener with each oil change. The poster in the window says, while supplies last, but Mick got a smoking good deal on half a warehouse of those air fresheners on eBay. I've seen the boxes in the storeroom and, believe me, supplies will last a good long while. We turned the corner of the building and walked around back where the 4 garage bays opened up into a cement parking lot. Next to the office door in the first bay stood a chubby man in green overalls and a red Cardinals baseball cap. As always, he chewed on half a cigar. Unlit, of course, because only an idiot would light up in a garage. Besides, he'd quit smoking years ago. Hey, Mick, I said as we walked past. He looked up from his clipboard. Quentin, my man, how's it going? He glanced between me and Rob, and Richard. Always welcome at Mickelson's garage. Rob scowled and followed me past Mick to Bay 4. There was an old Chevy Malibu up on the lift. Looked like an inline fuel filter job. The woman underneath it was also dressed in green coveralls. Her plain brown hair was pulled up in a ponytail and threaded through the back of a white baseball cap that didn't have a logo on it. Just grease. She looked both young and old, 32 to be exact, and she handled a wrench in her hand like a pro. Hi, Mom, I said. She stopped cranking the wrench just long enough to look over and give me a piece of a smile. Hey, Quentin. Hi, Rob. How's school? Oh, my throat's dying. Hydration. Yummy. That's like the lamest thing I've ever said. Hydration, yummy. Where the heck am I? Okay, I said. Guess what Quentin's going to do for my brother, Rob blurted out. I jabbed my elbow in his ribs before Mom looked over at us again. What's that? I shrugged. Nothing, just help him with some school stuff. Mom turned back to the underside of the car and I pulled Rob across the parking lot to an old picnic table resting in the shade of a grove of poplars. The trees went out for at least 100 yards on town land. A dirt path broke through the trees, crossing a wooden bridge on its way. Rob rubbed his chest. I think you cracked a rib. That's not something my mom needs to hear about, I said, pulling notebooks from my backpack. Sorry, it's not like you're doing something illegal. What are you doing that's not illegal? Said a familiar voice. Abby stepped out from the poplar path and joined us at the picnic table. Her soft blonde hair fell past her shoulders and a single dimple stuck in her cheek as if a thumbtack held it there. Back in the 2nd grade, when Rob and I got in that scuffle over daring me to kiss a girl, well, Abby was the girl. Somehow that endeared us to her, and we'd been friends ever since. She was also my best friend, the other one of 2. Hi, Abby. Quentin's going to... Rob stopped short and looked over at me, his eyes begging me to let him go on. I stepped in before Rob could stick his foot in his mouth. Nothing, not really. I'm just helping Marcus with something he wants to do for, or actually with, Melissa. Abby's eyes suddenly became a brighter shade of blue. Oh, that's so sweet of him. Like a surprise date? Or a birthday party? I cleared my throat. Well, I can't really talk about it. It's kinda hush-hush. Quentin, come on, just give me a hint. I can't. Don't make me ask you 3 questions. Don't you mean 20 questions? I corrected. No, just 3. I saw this courtroom show the other night where the lawyer was explaining how you could get to the bottom of any case with just 3 questions, if you know the right questions to ask. Everyone knows that Abby's life plan includes a successful career as a district attorney. So are you going to tell me, or are you going to make me ask the questions? I really can't, Abby, because I hesitated. I never kept anything from her or Rob, but somehow this seemed like a good exception. I wasn't sure what she'd think of my little job for Marcus, because we have the grammar test on Friday that's going to kick your trash if we don't get busy. Abby groaned and plopped down at the picnic table. That's a hopeless cause. Why bother? Because it just saved me from spilling the beans, that's why. Come on, open up, I said. Abby and Rob dug out their books. The 3 of us were in several classes together, which made homework a lot easier. Abby was really good with the math and science stuff. I had English and history in the bag. And Rob, well, he was there for moral support. You want to start with number 1, Abby? I asked. Okay, she studied the page in her notebook. Number 1, determine the adverb in this sentence. Ooh, stairs. Abby was dying to know what Quentin was secretly doing for Marcus and Melissa. Abby! No, she replied with a straight face. In this case, Abby is a noun. Rob snickered. Okay, Rob, I said without looking up. Why don't you take the first one for us? Please, Abby said before Rob could respond. Just tell me, is it romantic sweet or fun sweet or a help you out because I love you sweet? I snapped my notebook shut. I'm not going to tell you. It's between me and Marcus. Just drop it, all right? Abby folded her arms. Guys have no sense of romance. Fine, keep your secret. You know I'll just get Rob to tell me later. I eyed Rob fiercely. He wouldn't dare. I wouldn't, he said. I shook my head more confidently than I felt. You wouldn't because I know a few things about you I'm sure you don't want shared. Rob's eyes widened and I knew my secret was safe with him. Embarrassing secrets will keep you from getting elected to public office, you know, Abby said. That's why you should never do anything you might be ashamed of later. Your past has got to be clean. Like you, I asked. That's right, she said in a dignified voice. I couldn't help myself. I jumped onto the table and cupped my hands to my mouth. Hey, everybody! Abigail Patch sleeps with a Hello Kitty doll. Abby scrambled onto the table and clamped her hand around my mouth. That's not the secret I was talking about, she hissed. Her lips were tight, but her eyes were laughing. Then there's like muffled noises that I can't do and I'm not going to try to do. I said through her hand. What? More muffled noises. If I take my hand off your face, will you behave yourself? I nodded. She slowly removed her hand. I grinned. We both stepped off the table and sat on the benches. Do you really sleep with a Hello Kitty doll? Rob asked. Abby stuck her tongue out at him. I threw back my head and shouted, And she has a pink unicorn nightlight. Abby slapped the side of my arm. You promised to behave yourself. I'm behaving just like myself, I said. I laughed. Abby gathered her books. Then I hope you behave like someone with better manners at the show tomorrow night. You guys are coming, right? Yep, Rob said. Wouldn't miss it, I added. Abby swung herself out from the table. Okay, good. I think I'm going to head early to art club. I'll see you tomorrow. I watched her as she passed the garages and headed for the street. She had said I might be ashamed of my secrets later, but there was nothing to be ashamed of in helping Marcus. No one would ever find out about it anyway. So when you gonna do the deed? Rob asked, as if reading my mind. I touched the $20 bill in my pocket. Tomorrow, after school. Tips for romance things. If you're gonna break up with someone, don't have someone else do it for you. If possible, do it in person. Do it yourself. If necessary, be prepared for a long conversation with any questions they might ask. Because, it's a tough situation, and it's like a lot of feelings will happen with a breakup. And like if you just send in some random person that you paid to break up with like your partner for you, then it's like, what? Like I've heard about drama with one of my ex friends having one of their friends break up with their boyfriend for them. And it was like such a huge thing. And my boyfriend at the time told me about it and was like ashamed of that situation, and so was I, because like I ended up having to break up with him during COVID, which, sucked because it had to be a video call. But like, at least I did it myself and not over text. I did the best I could do given the circumstances. But like, this book, I remember finding it entertaining, but don't do this in real life. Don't become Quentin, and don't be one of the guys paying Quentin to break up with their girlfriends. I think some girls start paying too. I can't remember right. But I don't know. Just don't reenact the scenarios in this book. It will only set you up for bad situations and a ton of bad things. And you won't grow as a person if you never have to go through the experience of tackling your problems yourself. So, yeah. Chapter 3. I stood in the parking lot of the burger joint for a few minutes, surveying the situation. There weren't any cars pulled up to the drive-in spots. The picnic tables were also empty. There was only one customer inside, and the air was fat with the mouth-watering scent of burger grease. It was like the place was waiting for me. You could find the usual fast food stops in our town, McDonald's and Taco Bell and whatnot. Rob's brother delivered Chinese food for the Golden Walk, which is good. But for a real treat, you go down to 5th and Main to the burger joint. The burger joint has a sit-down restaurant on the inside, white picnic tables with large orange umbrellas on the outside, and a row of parking spaces with intercom boxes you can order from. They serve the french fries in big wedges with plenty of salt, and they stick an oversized toothpick through the middle of your burger. They even used to have the waitresses sailing around on roller skates like back in the good old days. But after one of the new waitresses lost control and took out a grandma with a walker, they did away with the skates, which is a shame. After one of the new waitresses lost control and took out a grandma with a walker. I mean, that's a good reason to do away with the skates, but oh man. I'd eat at the burger joint every day if I could, but Mom works as a mechanic and my dad's been out of the picture since pretty much forever, so it's not like we're rolling in money. I'm sorry if my voice is like quivering, but as soon as I read my dad hasn't been the milk. Why do all the dads get the milk? Nar! Nar! Oh no! We don't go there very often. Mom calls it a splurge and saves it for special occasions, like birthdays or the end of the school year or stuff. But the day after I made the deal with Marcus, I headed down there right when school let out. Melissa was a waitress and I wanted to get the job over with before the afternoon customers started coming in. No! I spotted her in the restaurant through a window. She and another waitress filled ketchup bottles behind a counter. Right away, my hands started to sweat. My heart beat like a bongo. I hoped that my face wasn't getting splotchy, which sometimes happens when I get nervous, or embarrassed, or when I eat walnuts. Easy, Quentin, I told myself. You're just delivering a message, that's all. You're not talking to a girl. You're speaking for your client. Both waitresses had their backs turned as I walked up to the white picnic tables. I figured Melissa would like as much privacy as possible when I delivered the message, so I moved to the table farthest from the building. I sat down and tried to look casual. A waitress spotted me and came out of the restaurant, a paper menu in one hand. She wasn't Melissa. She looked as old as my mom, with her hair tied up and tucked under her cap and white sneakers on her feet. She walked all the way to my end of the picnic area and slapped the menu down on my table. "What'll it be for you?" she asked. My hand only shook a little as I reached for the menu. Um, actually, I was hoping I could see Melissa. The waitress smirked. "Oh, I see. Not likely." She turned and walked back into the restaurant. I brought the menu up and peeked over the top. She was talking to Melissa, pointing toward me. Melissa nodded and headed out the door. As she came closer, my mouth went dry. It felt like my tongue had turned into a gym sock, but I timed it perfectly so that I looked up from the menu just as she arrived. She smiled at me, a cute smile, one you might flash at a 3-year-old. "I know you," she said. "You're one of Robbie McFallen's friends." Ooh. 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 That one misword. Ooh. Ooh. I nodded smoothly. "Yeah, that's me." She pulled out her order notepad. "So what can I get you?" I cleared my throat. "Actually, I was hoping I could talk to you for a few minutes." I pointed to the bench on the other side of the table. She dropped her smile. "I'm kind of working right now. You really need to hear what I have to tell you." This is not the moment. This is not the moment. This is not the moment, okay? You don't... Ugh. 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 I can't. Ugh. Melissa studied me for a minute, shot a glance at the restaurant window, and stepped closer. She didn't sit down. "Make it quick." Here's my chance. All I need to do was say the line, pat her on the shoulder, and walk away, $20 richer. But as she locked eyes with me, hers deep brown with a raised eyebrow, my mouth just couldn't form the word, so I stalled. Small talk. "So how long have you been working here?" I asked. That seemed to throw her off, and she relaxed a little. "Almost a year. Are you looking for a job?" "No, not really." So much for small talk. There was only one other thing I knew about Melissa, and excuse me. And I figured it might point us in the right direction. "And, how long have you been dating Marcus McFallen?" Now she looked confused. 7 months and 2 weeks. Why? What is this about? 7 months and 2 weeks? Marcus had been dating this girl for over half a year and was now sending someone else to end it. What a jerk. I pushed the thought from my mind. Focus. I took a deep breath. "Melissa, I have some bad news." Her face flooded with concern. "Has something happened to Marcus?" "Marcus is breaking up with you." The sentence jumped out of my mouth on its own, which was good, because I didn't think I could have said it otherwise. The guilt was starting to get to me. Melissa stared at me for a full minute, then she sank into the bench across from me. "He sent you to tell me that?" I nodded slowly, trying to look sympathetic. To be honest, I was expecting more of a reaction from her. Tears, for example, or at least angry fists shaking curses to the sky and Marcus McFallen. Her eyes weren't even moist. In fact, she laughed. A hard laugh that was lemon sour in the middle. "I love Marcus, but who knows why? That boy has no backbone." She put her elbows on the table and placed her chin in her hands. "I just can't believe that Well, no. I can't believe that, too." The guilt quickly drained away, making a sucking sound in my ears like the last of the bathtub water. That had been a lot easier than I'd expected. I'd found a private setting, I'd given her the message without tripping over my tongue, and she didn't even need to cry on my shoulder. She suddenly looked up at me. "Did he pay you to do this?" I also hadn't expected that. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. How was I supposed to respond? She saved me the trouble. Shaking her head, she said, "Well, at least he was willing to cough up some money for me. Must have been worth it to him." Melissa stood. She straightened her apron and pulled out her order pad and pencil. For a moment, I thought she was going to ask me for my order, like nothing had happened. Instead, Instead, she said, "Here's some free advice for you, little messenger. Someday, if you break up with a girl on your own, you're going to want to use flowers and chocolates. Flowers at least say thanks for the memories. And chocolates, well, you don't want to leave a girl completely alone." Then she turned and walked back into the restaurant. Maybe I hadn't watched enough chick flicks, or maybe I had a heart of concrete. Maybe I was even more clueless about girls than I knew. I think I think most other people would have watched her walk away and felt a little pang of remorse, or at least felt sorry for her. But she'd taken it so well that I didn't feel any of that. Instead, I thought about her free advice. My mind started working like a mechanic welding together a new differential case. The next time I break up with a girl, flowers, chocolates, $20 in my pocket. I wasn't sure how yet, but this had some real potential. My wrist hurts. Maybe I can hang on. We're trying to adjust the desk setup so I can be a bit more comfortable. Chapter 4. I thought about ordering a burger right there at the burger joint, since they do have the best hamburgers around, but I didn't want to call out the other waitress again, and I sure couldn't order from Melissa. Instead, I hiked down to McDonald's and got a Big Mac and 3 cheeseburgers to go, and an order of large fries. I had money to burn, after all. Then I made my way over to Mick's, where I knew Mom would still be cranking away. It wasn't dinner time yet, but a hot burger early was better than a cold burger on time. Mom's been a mechanic for years, having grown up with 5 car-crazy brothers. She was getting paid to work at a garage even before she graduated from high school, and even after she and Dad got married. But when I was born, she quit. She could have gotten someone to watch me, but she said she didn't want to come home to our baby with her hands smelling like grease and her fingernails looking like charcoal crescent moons. But when Dad up and left, she put her coveralls on and headed back to the garage. Mick offered her a good salary and all the hours she wanted if she could work the night shift. She didn't like the idea of leaving me alone for so long in the evening, but we worked it out, like garage bay dinners, for example. I strolled into the bay where Mom was working on a Subaru up on a hydraulic lift. Looked like a muffler problem. "Hey, Mom, I brought dinner." She stuck her head out around the edge of the car. "You brought dinner? What for? We've got stuff in the freezer." I walked over to the little table in the corner of the bay and laid down a fresh sheet of newspaper, the comic section. I brought out the burgers and the large carton of fries, stacked up the ketchup packets, and placed a napkin on each side of the table. Mom was still under the Subaru, so I stepped into the empty garage office and used the office phone to dial Marcus's cell. "Marcus," he said after 2 rings, "this is Quentin. It's done." "How'd she take it?" he asked eagerly. "Well, she didn't cry." "She didn't? That's good, right?" Sure," I said. "Thanks, man. You saved my life." I hung up the phone and went back out to our dinner table in the garage bay. Marcus was happy, Melissa wasn't crying, and I was eating cheeseburgers. Not bad for a day's work. Mom finally got to a stopping point and came out from under the car. She turned to the sink next to the table and filled her grabby hands full of ocean-scented pumice soap. She glanced over at the table. "What's the occasion? And where'd you get the money for that feast?" "You don't need an occasion to eat hamburgers, and I told you before that Rob's brother is paying me to help him out with some stuff." "I don't remember you mentioning getting paid." She gave me a glance from her mom eyes. "You're not doing his homework for him, are you?" I laughed. "Mom, he's a junior in high school. I'm 13. She scrubbed hard under the running water. "Yes, but it's Marcus McFarlane. Even in his high school classes, you can pull better grades than he does." "I just thought you might like something besides microwave burritos for dinner. But I can eat yours too if you don't want it." Mom wiped her hands on a shop towel and ruffled my hair with her charcoal crescent fingernails. "Thanks for thinking of me." She sat down in front of the Big Mac. "Whose turn today?" "Yours. I picked human cloning yesterday." "That's right," she thought for a moment. "Let's go with chocolate bars." "Butterfinger," I said, my mouth half full of cheeseburgers. "That's my favorite." "Yours is the plain old Hershey's bar, right?" Yep, I've heard, though, that American chocolate is waxy. You have to taste European chocolate to get the real chocolate experience. Where'd you hear that? Don't know. On TV, maybe. Mom looked thoughtful. I wonder why that is. Don't cocoa beans come from South America? Why don't South Americans have the best chocolate? And we're closer to South America than Europe is, so you'd think that our chocolate would at least be better. Would at least be better than Europe's. Well, said Mom, we'll have to find an import store sometime and experiment. Then we chewed in silence for a moment, but only for a moment. When Dad left and Mom started working, we didn't have a lot of time to spend together in the evenings. Mom didn't want to waste our time together by eating in silence or getting one-worded responses about my school day, so we came up with the Garage Bay dinner conversation game. Just 2 rules. Take turns picking the topic, and everybody has to participate. Some topics work out better than others, but mostly we get to laugh a lot and talk a lot, which is probably more than most families do with their plates in front of the TV. Why is a plain Hershey's bar your favorite? I asked. I mean, there's no peanuts, no caramel, no crunchies, just chocolate. Waxy chocolate, apparently. She winked at me. You really want to know? I nodded. It was actually your Uncle Ethan's favorite candy bar. I don't know why it was his favorite. He just likes plain things. But when he was in the Navy, I'd send him a big package of Hershey's chocolate bars twice a month. He'd keep them in his footlocker and make them last until the next package came. He liked his Hershey bars, and I liked sending them. But Ethan noticed that someone was getting into his footlocker and eating his chocolate. He couldn't figure out who it was, but he didn't want to make a big announcement about it, so he wrote to me and had me get a bunch of chocolate X-Lax bars for him. Then I took the wrappers off the Hershey bars and wrapped them around the X-Lax bars. What's X-Lax? I asked. It's a medicine that makes you poop. It looks and tastes just like chocolate. I laughed. What would they think of next? Anyway, she continued, I wrapped up the X-Lax so they looked like Hershey's bars and sent them off like I always did. Ethan later wrote and said 2 of his shipmates spent 3 days in the head before they finally figured out what had happened to them. By then I was laughing so hard I couldn't swallow my fries. Mom laughed too. So when I eat a Hershey's bar, I think of Ethan. I guess that's why I like them. I paused in my laughing to take a breath. So do they still sell chocolate X-Lax? Mom gave me a warning look. I'm not going to answer that. By the way, Abby called to remind you of her art show tonight. Like she's given me a chance to forget in the past 2 weeks, I said as I crumbled up my burger wrappings. It seems like she's always so busy, Mom said. I'm surprised she has time to do everything. Yeah, that's Abby. Does she hang out with anyone besides you and Rob? What do you mean? We're her best friends. Why would she want to hang out with anyone besides us? Hello? I'm recording right now. Excuse me? It's the sibling, everyone. Who I almost fell. Also, are you the one that gave me this book? Was that you?
No, I thought you bought that.
I didn't buy it.
Maybe I did give it to you.
I think you gave it to me.
Stop recording.
No. I want to record. Bubba, you want to come in? Puppy. We have a dog and he's outside my door. Fine, come on. Good doggy.
You want to give a bark?
Tayan, I'm gonna pull your tail so you bark for the listeners, okay?
No!
He's fine. He's just a silly little boy. He can go on my bed if he wants to, so signal him up. Bedtime. Well, not bedtime, but bedtime. Tayan, you're stepping on a wrapper. No.
No!
Tayan! You stupid dude. Oh my gosh.
No.
You are lucky that I think you were too muddled to be heard. Can't believe you. Can you believe her?
You already enforced animal abuse.
What? No, I didn't.
Tail.
No.
I thought the noise was him almost throwing up.
You were so terrified, weren't you? You were like, no, not in here, not in here.
None of the white Yeezys.
There, feel us.
I know that
No. What is with you and coming in while I'm recording?
they are. Because I want food.
And then cry about it and feed yourself. You can feed yourself. Get a rat. Ratatouille. Ratatouille your way through it, okay? I don't know what else to tell.
Just delete the fucker. Delete it all.
I love my dramatic gasp.
Delete it all.
Just delete the me. like Pinkie Pie's gasp. Hang on, can I do it?
If that chair falls backwards, I'm gonna laugh my ass.
She whispered the swear. Just say butt. You can.
Nah, ass is funnier. Just delete the entire recording.
No.
I'm serious, delete the
Why? No. Why?
Because I don't want my voice anywhere.
Dude, it's too late. You were already in an episode before.
Bitch.
She swear.
Shit, pussy ass, motherfucking damn, bitch.
I'm not even monetized and I'm gonna get demonetized.
Good.
Dang it, Jen.
You have to delete it now.
No, I don't. I've sworn on accident, but then I just frantically go like, you didn't hear that. You didn't hear that. I said this. This is what I said. That past moment, it never happened. It's an illusion. Jinxie finds it cute for some reason, and that's on being gay. But do you remember what the Heartbreak Messenger is about?
Nope.
It's this kid named Quentin gets paid to break up with people for people.
Nice. I don't think I ever read it, even though it was my book.
I read it, and now I'm reading it for the podcast. Obvi. Where the heck was I?
Your mom.
Actually, we are talking with Quentin's mom right now, so...
You told me to throw it back. About.
Why would she want to hang out with anyone besides us? No, I mean, is she seeing anyone? I shot her a look of disbelief. Mom, she's not even 14 yet. Why would she be seeing anyone? Just curious. I don't know when kids these days start pairing up. Abby's the ambitious type. I could see her being interested in that. Trust me, Mom. Nothing is further from her mind. But she's thought of... Bleh. All she's thought about for 6 weeks now is the art show. And if I don't get going, I'm going to be late. Then I won't hear the end of that for another 6 weeks. I tossed my trash and hit the sidewalk. Even as I heard the clanking of tools in the garage bay echo across the street, I couldn't help but wonder why my mom was asking those kinds of questions about my best friend. Abby going out with somebody would have been as ridiculous as me having a girlfriend. Sure, there were kids in our classes who did that, but Abby? Me? I laughed out loud. Where did Mom come up with this stuff? I turned down Robble's Drive. That is a weird road name.
I just want food.
If you couldn't hear her, she legit, in response to my commentary about the drive name, went, I just want food. And, you can eat by yourself. I don't... You're just sitting menacingly on my bed with your dog by your feet. And...
You told me to throw it back. About.
Oh. Beep bop. There we are.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you looking at?
He's looking at you, obviously. I'm just trying to read my... I'm just trying to read my book. Sheesh. What's he biting? My bag?
Nothing. He was sniffing it, but he had his mouth open.
Squish.
They told me to throw it back. About.
I turned down Robles Drive and headed for our apartment in the cool evening air. Chapter 5.
Just stop there. No. Just stop there. No. Give her a chapter. No. Just stop. No. Bitch. No. Pussy.
She's gonna swear until I stop! Nar! Nar!
No.
Nar!
Can't even fucking do it.
I sound like a horse. No!
Nar.
Nar!
Nar.
Nar!
Nar.
Nar!
Nar. Oh, the scrunkly.
Alien fun.
The scrunkly blow. The hungry scrim. The hugly scribblo.
Huggy Wuggy? I think that's a video game thing, right? What?
You want to see him? Hold on.
Titan?
Okay, so you want to see Huggy Wuggy?
Titan.
Would you like to see Huggy Wuggy Ooh Woo?
Huggy Wuggy Ooh Woo. Oh, there he goes. Now you go in my bed. I swear, if you eat Agnes the horse or my elephant, or Moss the frog.
There's a plush.
Oh, no. Oh, hashtag traumatized. That was the cringiest thing I've ever said on this podcast, aside from another thing that I'm not going to repeat.
Okay, so here's how he looks all friendly. All friendly little man, right?
Oh, yeah, he's a friendly little fella.
He's not a friendly little man.
Wait, that reminds me. Do you remember those, like, the yodel things? The yodeler things? Well, do you remember those?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a fever dream. I mean, they felt like a fever dream. Give him head pets for me. Thank you. He's on my bed with a sibling, and he gets head pets. We're talking about the dog. Chapter 5. I found the only button-up shirt I owned under my bed. It was a little wrinkly, but it smelled okay, so I put it on. And that's on being a guy. That's such a guy thing.
Men.
Like, dude, earlier, apparently this guy became best friends with his guy best friend by fighting him in the playground. That's such a guy thing, right? Don't yawn in my presence, Tutan. He moved his paw. Rob met me out on the sidewalk. There we go. Words, yummy. He wore slacks, a collared shirt, and a navy blue bow tie. What's with the tie, I asked. Abby didn't say anything about wearing a tie, did she? She had given Rob and me specific instructions for the event, right down to what we were supposed to wear. No, but I told Marcus I was going to a cultural event, and he let me wear it. I tried to talk him into letting me wear the shiny vest that matches it, but he said I already looked like a geek. Sounds like good brotherly advice. Rob fingered the bow tie. Do you think it's too much? Rob, you're asking me about clothes? I'm not even sure if I wore matching socks yesterday. Yeah, I don't think you did. As we headed down the street, Rob quietly pulled the bow tie from his collar and stuffed it into his pocket when he thought I wasn't looking. I tried not to smile. Hey, how'd that thing with Melissa go? Rob asked. Mission accomplished. Not too many tears. You missed out on an easy $20. Rob shrugged. It didn't take long to walk down to the community center. It didn't... What?
Fuck.
Okay. Dang it, Kevin. He seems scared now. Titan, did I scare you by doing this? Oh, this poor dog. It didn't take long to walk to a lot of places in our part of town, although to get to the east side was a different story. Our side of town still had a small time feel to it. Big enough that you didn't know all the kids you passed on the street, but small enough that their moms probably knew your mom. But the east side had a bunch of new subdivisions and business areas that kept growing and growing. They had opened a new middle school the year before and filled all the nooks and crannies at the high school with portables. There were people everywhere. I was
struggling from the doorknob was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Just for that, he's not getting freedom. Screw you. What are all these people doing here? Rob asked. Dozens and dozens of people milled around the front lawn of the community center, shaking hands and talking. They were dressed in coats and ties or fancy gowns, and each one of them was way older than my mom. It looked like bingo night for the rich and famous. I rubbed my hands down the front of my shirt, trying to smooth out the wrinkles. Maybe Abby didn't tell us quite enough about what we were supposed to wear tonight. Rob smiled as he pulled the navy blue bow tie out of his pocket and clipped it back onto his collar. We worked our way back to the front entrance, clinging to the building to make ourselves as invisible as possible. Are you sure we're in the right place? Rob asked after an older lady wearing too much makeup patted him on the head as she walked by. Well, isn't it usually old people that like to go to art galleries? Quentin! Rob! As we neared the front entrance, Abby hurried toward us. She wore a soft purple dress and her shoes had little heels on them. I'd never seen her wear shoes with heels on them before. Abby... Did you hear that? I went, Abby... with a voice crack. Abby grinned as she grabbed each of us by an arm. Can you believe this? The community center got double booked somehow. The 65-plus club is having their annual social tonight, and lucky for us, they love the idea of having their social at our show. Isn't that awesome? They're expecting over 200 guests, and they'll all see our artwork. Come on! Abby's energy practically shot through her fingertips into my arm. I couldn't help but smile to see her so excited. She was like a bag of microwave popcorn when she got like that. Just press start and watch her go. That is so weird. That's such a weird metaphor. Simile. Your mom. Please stop licking my floor. I don't even know if that picked up. What? We passed through the foyer into the main hall of the community center. It wasn't a huge place. I doubted the whole 65-plus club could all fit. Even if... I did that because I couldn't talk, so thank you for joining into the weird noises. Hi, Tweet. Sit. Good boy. Thank you, Bye-bye. Such good boy. So good. Bad boy. I said sit. 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 Stay sitting. Like a gentleman. I doubted the whole 65-plus club could have all fit, even if it hadn't been set up like an art gallery. Movable half walls blocked off sections of the hall. Wow, I hydrated and now my voice is dying again. I said sit, little fellow. I love you, but no! Just sit, please. Por favor, Barrow. Por favor. I can't roll my R's, so...
Por favor.
You what? I can't even imitate it.
But technically the R's in por favor aren't gold.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about pero.
Oh, pero.
Pero. We're moving on.
Pero.
He's done. He's bored. He's tired of that. Bebop, bebop. Movable half walls blocked off sections of the hall into several smaller rooms to display the artwork. People, not all of them old, I was glad to see, moved slowly between the walls. At the front of the room sat half a dozen refreshment tables stacked full of sugar, fat, frosting, and whatever the other food groups are. They were like heavy cargo ships ripe for plunder. Abby squeezed her arms. Remember, you promised to behave yourselves tonight. Act like gentlemen and at least pretend to be interested in the artwork. And don't go crazy on the food. There's going to be a lot of people here. Oh, Quentin. She reached up and flattened my collar out. Couldn't you have at least ironed your shirt? She said it with a half smile, like she already knew the answer. Are you kidding me? I said. I have a really good memory, and you said nothing about ironing. Abby rolled her eyes and gave Rob the once-over. Nice tie. You might as well get some refreshments. I know you're dying to. And then meet me over on the far side there. I need to go find somebody first. Rob and I waited until Abby was out of arm's reach before sprinting toward the tables like gentlemen pirates. The spread was even more impressive close up. I doubted that the art club had that kind of budget. It made me look forward to the day I was 65 plus. Rob and I sampled from several of the tables as we piled up our foam plates. We ate the goods down to an Abby-approved portion before grabbing cups of punch and heading off to look for her. For her!
Or?
No! Dang it! I thought that was...
podcast is going to shit.
No! What? How dare you come in and ruin the first episode of Heartbreak Messenger? Where am I?
Penis.
Dang it! And heading off to look for her. As an afterthought, I grabbed an extra cup for her and balanced it between my arm and chest. Abby waved to us from the far side of the makeshift gallery. She stood next to someone I was sure I had seen before in the hallways at school. I figured he was probably an 8th grader. He was tall with dark hair and thick eyebrows. He said something and laughed. Abby laughed too. Hey guys, Abby said, still smiling. This is Justin Masterson. He's in the art club with me. Rob and Quentin, right? Justin nodded in our direction. Abby's told me all about you two. I didn't think either of you liked art much. His tone of voice immediately rubbed me the wrong way. I shrugged. Who doesn't like art? Yeah, Rob nodded. I mean, I draw sometimes. Doodles and stuff. Justin smiled, didn't move. He had very white teeth. Cool, then I'm sure you'll like our show. He motioned toward the nearest wall. Do you want a tour? He started forward without waiting for a response. Oh, I said, pushing one of the cups of punch toward Abby. I got this for... It was then that I realized she was already holding a drink. Both of our eyes darted back and forth between the cups. Oh, Abby finally said, thanks, Justin brought me some just a minute ago. She raised her eyes from the cup to look at me. That was nice, though. Then she followed after Justin and Rob. I looked at the two cups and the plate of goodies I was juggling in my hands. With a sigh, I balanced the plate on my forearm and took one of the cups in my free hand. I drained it in a single chug. Grape. Stacking the full cup into the empty one, I followed the group. We've been studying different modern art movements, Abby was explaining as I caught up, and then we tried to copy the style of the artists we studied. Justin raised his hand toward the paintings on the wall. Like this, our Impressionist paintings. He took a deep breath as though smelling the paint. I looked closer at a painting of a doorway and chair. It seemed blurry, as if it had been soaked in a tub of water. This one looks a little out of focus to me. Guess it's time for glasses, Quentin, Abby laughed. Justin didn't. That's the way it's supposed to look. You know, like Monet, the French painter. Ah, gotcha. I turned toward Rob and rolled my eyes. Rob snorted and stuffed a cherry tart into his mouth. Justin motioned to the wall across from us. These were done after studying Jackson Pollock, abstract expressionism. I stared at the 10 paintings arranged neatly on the wall. Each one had been splattered again and again with different colors of paint. It looked more like an accident than artwork. Rob stepped forward and poked at one of the paintings. I didn't know you had kindergartners in your club. Rob, Abby said. Justin ignored the comment. This style is a lot harder than it looks to do right. I think the one here at the top is the best. He took a step to the side and lightly placed his hand on Abby's back. Painted by a brilliant artist I know. I had a cream-filled pastry headed toward my mouth, but it froze in midair when I saw Justin's hand make contact with the back of Abby's dress. I waited for her to swat his hand away, but she didn't. Sure, it was probably just a friendly pat on the back between artists, or something, but I still couldn't believe she was letting him touch her. The guy was clearly an idiot. I put the pastry back on my plate. Abby shrugged her shoulders up around her neck and smiled her dimpled smile. I think they're all very good. Even then, Justin kept his hand on her back. We all stood there, staring at the splattered rectangles hanging on the wall, except for me. I tried to distract myself by calculating how much gel Justin must have used to get the wave into the front of his hair. It's gotta be solid enough to ride a skateboard on, I thought. Then my eyes wandered again to Justin's hand on Abby's back. Someone had to save her. So what's in the next room? I blurted out. Justin gave Abby a quick smile and a sidelong glance before pushing her gently ahead of him toward the opening between the fake walls. This is our cubism room, Abby said as we passed into it. There were several other people looking at the artwork across the room. Cubism. Like Picasso, I said quickly. I was tired of knowing less than the idiot. Very good, Quentin, Justin said as though he were teaching an art class. Picasso, Braque, Greece. They tried to take the world apart and put it back together in a way no one had ever seen before.
I stubbed my toes.
Revolutionary. The idiot had apparently memorized whole paragraphs out of his art textbook. Okay, Abby said quickly. Next room. Rob was studying the paintings on the nearest wall. What exactly did you take apart and put back together? The paintings looked like a person, probably a woman, but beyond that it was all brown squares and lines to me. I read the title under one of the paintings, Abby by the Pool. Abby waved us toward the adjoining room. I think you guys will like this next one. Is that really a picture of you, Abby? Rob asked. We needed a model for these paintings, and we managed to talk Abby into it, said Justin. She had some great definition in her swimsuit, so she was perfect for it. I don't like that comment, white boy. I don't like it. You modeled for everyone in your swimsuit? I probably said that louder than I needed to. I remember the days when Abby wouldn't go down to the river in anything but shorts and a t-shirt. Last summer, to be exact. Abby held up her hands. No, it wasn't like that. Well, I mean, we went swimming afterward. It was a pool party, with a little painting at the beginning. Everyone was in their swimsuit. Still, for some reason I had a hard time picturing Abby's art club gathered around staring at her as she lounged in front of the pool. I glanced over at Justin, who looked more than a little well-built in his thick sweater and slacks. Abby's cheeks flushed pink. Can we please move to the next room now? As she headed off, Justin leaned over to me. You know, in college art courses, they use nude models for this kind of thing. He winked at me and followed Abby. I don't like this Justin guy. I don't like him. Do you like him?
I just want food.
You could have gone by yourself. Dang it. He's such a little fella.
He is. Look at him. He's a little succulent there.
I glared at his back. For some reason, I felt like taking him apart and putting him back together in a way he hadn't seen before. Hey, Quentin, are you going to eat the rest of that? Rob pointed to my plate. I handed it to him and followed Justin. How much more is left of this chapter? Oh, okay. The next room took me by surprise. Instead of pictures on the walls, there were things around the room. An old corded telephone stretched out, holding up laundry, a pair of canvas shoes with doodles all over them, and in the center of the room, on a shallow pedestal, was a white porcelain toilet bowl filled to the top with M&Ms. A man and his wife were on the other side of the room, nodding and smiling as if sharing a joke. Two ladies with white hair and shawls also wandered through the room. What the heck is this? Rob asked, half a cupcake in his mouth. Dadaism. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Justin said, anti-art. It made fun of all the rules that the art world lived by. There was this guy named Duchamp? I don't know. Who turned a urinal upside down and named it Fountain. I wanted to try something kind of like that. He patted the shiny white toilet tank. I call it Candy Dish. Pretty cool, eh? I found the toilet out of the scrapyard and then stuffed the bowl with newspapers and cardboard so I wouldn't have to fill the whole thing with M&Ms. Rob reached down and grabbed a handful of candy. I stared at him. Rob, you just took those out of a toilet bowl. He popped a few into his mouth. Weren't you listening? It's not a toilet bowl. It's anti-art. Justin grinned. Awesome, man. That's the spirit of it. Most of us in the group really got into the deism. But, okay, we're still recording. I'm sorry, it looked weird. But Abby says we're crazy. He slipped his arm around Abby's shoulders and gave her a squeeze. I still think we can win her over. After he finished speaking, Justin's hand didn't move. It just sat there, like it was super glued to Abby's arm. Again, I waited for Abby to do something, but she just glanced down at his hand and then looked at me, biting her lip. I felt sorry for her. She was obviously uncomfortable with this guy's paws on her, but she was too shy to say anything about it. A voice came over the intercom, asking the art club kids to come to the front for a brief presentation. Abby ducked out from under Justin's arm. Why don't you two take a look at the rest of the artwork before our presentation? It won't be very long, I promise. As she started toward the front of the hall, Justin offered her his hand. She hesitated slightly and then placed her hand in his. Together they disappeared into the maze of movable walls. Oh my goodness gracious. My eyes stayed focused on the exit long after they passed through. As I stood there, the two old ladies stepped up beside me to stare at Justin's candy dish commode. I like that song. How dare you play it when I'm trying to focus? Dang it, she's turning it up! Back, summer. No, you're not about to scroll through the audio. You're not about to look up the song and play it right now. My eyes stayed focused on the exit long after they passed through. As I stood there, the two old ladies stepped up beside me to stare at Justin's candy dish commode. Well, I have to say, that looks like a toilet full of candy to me, said one. Better than a toilet full of something else, said the other. They both cackled. After that, I didn't really feel like looking at the other works of art. Ralph went back to the refreshment table for a refill, and I managed to find my way outside for some fresh air. After all, it was crowded in there. I stood on the front lawn of the community center, surrounded by senior citizens flashing their dentures at one another. Jack, please, I'm almost done. You want to eat, right? Thank you. I stood on the front lawn of the community center, surrounded by senior citizens flashing their dentures at one another. All I could think about was Justin standing next to Abby, laughing, and with Abby standing next to Justin, laughing back with a dimple in her cheek. I felt a little dizzy, like my stomach had just dropped a foot or two. Must have been something in the punch. Okay, so I'm already like 8 minutes overtime for normal recordings because I had to finish that chapter. So this is the end. My sister is blasting Backstabber by Kesha. Don't sit tired of hearing all about my life from the people with all of your life. The type of baby you should shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. You never shut your mouth. Honestly, I think it's kind of funny that you waste your breath talking about me. Got me feeling kind of special. This is the girl. She's such a backstabber. Wait, no! I've sworn! No! Ugh! What, did you think I was playing the clean version? No! I forgot I swore! Ugh! We didn't swear in outrageous outrageous amount, so I'm not going to mark it explicit, but, like, it's not like children listen to my podcast, so it's not like, oh man, I'm a sticky-fingered third grader. I'm not going to say the F word because of this podcast. So, that's the end. My sister's complaining about being hungry, so she needs to be fed. Thank you for tuning in.
You make me sound like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, you're acting like a 5-year-old. You were sitting angrily on my bed as I'm trying to record my podcast. You were sitting angrily on my bed. You were sitting angrily. You were sitting angrily on my bed.
Spectrum, like, leave me alone.
You were sitting angrily on my bed, glaring at me cross-legged. I'm hungry.
No, don't stop. You're gonna be so mad.
Why would I be mad? No. No!